When HOA Karen demanded $30,000 from a deployed veteran for tall grass violations, she made a fatal mistake. She didn't know Marcus was a federal land management supervisor. She also didn't know her precious HOA rules meant nothing on federal land. Some bullies picked the wrong target. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The dust cloud behind my pickup truck hadn't even settled when I saw her marching across the dirt road. Brenda Morrison, the self-appointed queen of Sunset Hills HOA, was stomping toward my ranch with that familiar look of fury on her face. After 18 months deployed overseas, this was not the welcome home I had imagined. I stepped out of my truck, still wearing my desert camouflage uniform. My legs felt shaky after the long drive from the base. All I wanted was to see my land, check on my horses, and maybe sit on my porch with a cold beer. Instead, I was about to face Hurricane Brenda. "Marcus Wheeler," she shrieked, waving a stack of papers above her head. "You are in serious trouble." I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "Hello, Brenda. Nice to see you too. Don't you, hello me? Do you see what you've done to this neighborhood? Your property is a complete disaster. The grass is 3 feet tall, there are weeds everywhere, and your fence is falling apart." I looked around my 5-acre ranch. Yes, the grass had grown wild while I was gone. My neighbor Joe was supposed to maintain it, but he had his own problems to deal with. The fence did need some repairs. But calling it a disaster? That was typical Brenda drama. "I've been deployed, Brenda. I just got back yesterday." "I don't care if you were on the moon," she snapped. "You signed the HOA agreement just like everyone else. Your property must meet our standards at all times. No exceptions." This was rich, coming from someone whose own yard looked like a golf course maintained by robots. Brenda had moved to our rural area 5 years ago from the city. She immediately started trying to turn our quiet ranching community into some kind of suburban paradise with rules for everything. "I'll take care of the grass this week," I said, trying to keep the peace. "This week?" She laughed coldly. "Oh no, soldier boy. You'll take care of it today. And you'll pay the fines too. $1,500 for each month of violations. That's $27,000 total." My jaw dropped. $27,000? For tall grass. Plus late fees and administrative costs. Call it an even $30,000. She handed me a thick envelope. "It's all itemized in there. Payment is due in 10 days, or we'll place a lien on your property." Blood rushed to my face. I had just spent a year and a half dodging bullets and roadside bombs in Afghanistan. I watched good friends come home in coffins. And this woman thought she could threaten me over grass height? Brenda, that's insane. This is a ranch, not a suburban subdivision. The HOA agreement doesn't care what you call it. Rules are rules. She crossed her arms and smiled. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before abandoning your responsibilities." Abandoning my responsibilities? I had been serving my country, protecting freedoms that people like her took for granted every day. The anger started building in my chest, but I forced myself to stay controlled. "I'll look over these papers and get back to you." "No rush," she said sweetly. "You have 10 days. Oh, and Marcus, I've already called the county about your illegal livestock operation. Apparently you need special permits for horses in this area now. I made sure of that." She turned and walked away, heels clicking on the gravel. I stood there holding the envelope, watching her retreat to her perfect little house with its perfect little garden. For the first time since coming home, I felt like I was still at war. That evening, I spread Brenda's papers across my kitchen table. The documents were impressive in their pettiness. She had photographed every weed, measured grass heights with a ruler, and documented fence posts that were slightly crooked. She had even included aerial photos taken with a drone. The HOA agreement was there too, signed by the previous owner of my property 3 years ago. I had inherited this mess when I bought the ranch from old Pete Hendricks. Most of the neighbors had refused to sign, but Pete was desperate to sell and agreed to anything. I called my friend Jake, who worked for the county planning department. "Marcus, welcome home, man. How was the deployment?" "Rough. Listen, I need a favor. Can you look up some records for me?" After I explained the situation, Jake went quiet for a moment. $30,000 in fines? For grass? That's insane even for Brenda Morrison. You know her? "Oh, we all know Brenda. She's been a nightmare for 2 years now. Files complaints about everything. Demands new ordinances every month. Half the county staff hides when they see her coming." "What about these livestock permits she mentioned?" Jake sighed. "Yeah, she pushed that through last year. Said rural properties needed better regulation. It was clearly aimed at you and a couple other ranchers. But Marcus, There might be something she doesn't know. What do you mean? Your property. Pete never told you the whole story about the land boundaries, did he? A cold feeling started in my stomach. What story? Meet me at the county office tomorrow morning. Bring your deed and a surveyor's map if you have one. Trust me on this. The next morning, Jake spread several maps across his desk. His expression was serious as he traced property lines with his finger. Marcus, I need to ask you something. What exactly do you do in the military? I'm a federal land management supervisor. I oversee environmental compliance on military bases and federal properties. Jake's face broke into a slow grin. That's what I thought. Do you know much about federal land designation? It's my job. Why? He pointed to a section of my map. Look at this. See how your property boundary extends back into those hills behind your house. I studied the map. Yeah, Pete said I owned about 5 acres total. Pete was wrong. According to these surveys, your property line goes back almost 2 miles. All the way to Sunset Creek. I stared at the map. That couldn't be right. 2 miles? That would make it 47 acres. And Marcus, look at this. He pulled out another document. This is a federal land designation from 1952. Everything from Sunset Creek forward to this ridge line, which includes most of your property, was designated as a federal wildlife corridor. My heart started pounding. Are you saying? I'm saying that most of your land is federal property under your management jurisdiction. As a federal land management supervisor, you have authority over HOA regulations on federal land. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How did Pete not know this? Pete inherited the ranch from his dad in 1987. Back then, nobody paid attention to old federal designations. The wildlife corridor was forgotten. But it never went away. Jake pulled out one more document. And here's the best part. Last month, Brenda filed a petition to expand HOA authority over all rural properties in the district. That petition included your federal land. She essentially asked the county to give her control over federal property. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. She petitioned the county to control federal land? Without knowing it was federal land. Marcus, she committed a federal offense. Attempting to unlawfully claim authority over federal property is a felony. I spent the next 3 days documenting everything. As a federal land management supervisor, I knew exactly what evidence I needed. I photographed the entire property, GPS mapped the boundaries, and reviewed every federal regulation that applied. Brenda had unknowingly trespassed on federal land multiple times while documenting her violations. Her drone flights over the wildlife corridor were illegal under federal aviation law. Her demand for livestock permits on federal land exceeded county authority. But the biggest violation was her attempt to impose HOA rules on a federal wildlife corridor. That was federal interference, punishable by massive fines and possible jail time. I also discovered that Brenda had been collecting administrative fees from other property owners without proper authorization. She had essentially been running a scam, using fake HOA authority to steal money from neighbors. On Thursday morning she showed up again. Well, Marcus, do you have my money? I was sitting on my porch, drinking coffee and watching my horses graze in the federal wildlife corridor. Actually, Brenda, I have some questions about your authority. My authority? I'm the HOA president, elected by the homeowners. Elected by whom exactly? I checked the county records. Only 3 property owners in this area ever signed HOA agreements. You, Pete Hendricks, and old Mrs. Garcia. That's not enough people to form a legal HOA. Her face went red. That's not relevant. The agreements are binding. On what authority? Show me your incorporation papers. I don't need to show you anything. Pay your fines or face the consequences. I stood up and walked to the edge of my porch. Brenda, I need to inform you that you are currently standing on federal land. She laughed. Federal land? This is your property. Actually, it's federal wildlife corridor land under my management jurisdiction. I'm a federal land management supervisor, and you have been trespassing on federal property for months. The color drained from her face. That's impossible. I handed her a folder. Survey maps, federal land designation documents, and aerial photos of your trespassing violations. You've also been flying unauthorized drones over federal airspace and attempting to claim authority over federal land. She opened the folder with shaking hands. As she read, her expression changed from confusion to horror. This can't be right. It's all verified through the Department of Interior. Brenda, you've committed multiple federal offenses. The fines start at $50,000 per violation. Over the next hour, I explained exactly how much trouble she was in. The drone flights alone carried fines of $25,000 each. She had made 14 documented flights. The attempted land grab was a felony. The fraudulent collection of HOA fees was theft. But I didn't know, she kept saying. Ignorance of federal law isn't a defense. You should have researched property boundaries before making legal threats. I let her sit with that information for a few minutes, then I made my offer. Here's what's going to happen, Brenda. You're going to dissolve this fake HOA immediately. You're going to return every penny you've collected in illegal fees to the neighbors. And you're going to publicly apologize for harassing a deployed service member. And if I don't? I showed her another document. I file federal charges. You face up to 5 years in prison and $500,000 in fines. Your house will be seized to pay the penalties. Your husband's military pension will be garnished. Her hands were shaking now. My husband doesn't know about any of this. Then you better figure out how to fix it before he finds out from federal investigators. She stared at the documents for a long time. Finally, she looked up with tears in her eyes. What do you want me to do? The next week was beautiful. Brenda sent letters to every property owner in the area, formally dissolving the HOA and returning all collected fees. She apologized publicly for overstepping boundaries and failing to respect our service members. Mrs. Garcia got back $3,000. The Johnsons got back $5,000. Even Pete Hendricks' estate received a refund check. But my favorite part was watching Brenda mow her own lawn for the first time. Apparently, she had been paying a service to maintain her perfect yard. Now that she had to return all the HOA money, she couldn't afford lawn service anymore. I made sure to sit on my porch every time she was outside struggling with her mower. Sometimes I'd wave and offer helpful tips about grass cutting. She never responded, but her face would turn red every time. The county also reversed all the new ordinances she had pushed through. My horses could graze freely again. Other ranchers in the area thanked me for standing up to her tyranny. But the sweetest moment came 2 weeks later. I was working on my fence when a black SUV pulled up my driveway. 2 people in suits got out and walked over. Mr. Wheeler? I'm Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. This is Agent Martinez. We understand you filed a complaint about federal land violations. I glanced toward Brenda's house. She was standing at her window watching through the curtains. Yes, ma'am. I documented multiple violations by a neighbor who was attempting to claim authority over federal wildlife corridor land. We'd like to interview you about those violations. And we'll need to speak with the individual in question. As the agents walked toward Brenda's house, I saw her curtains snap shut. A few minutes later, I heard raised voices through her open windows. The agents spent 2 hours at Brenda's house. When they left, she came outside and sat on her porch with her head in her hands. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. 3 months later, life had returned to normal. My grass was the perfect height because I kept it that way for my horses, not because of any HOA demands. My fence was repaired and stronger than ever. The federal wildlife corridor was properly marked and protected. Brenda had become a model neighbor. She never complained about anything. She kept her head down and minded her own business. Word around town was that her husband had been furious when he learned about her schemes. Some people said they were getting divorced. I didn't take pleasure in her downfall, but I felt satisfied that justice had been served. She had tried to bully a deployed service member over made-up rules and fake authority. She learned that actions have consequences. My favorite moment came on a Saturday morning in October. I was sitting on my porch, drinking coffee and watching deer graze in the federal wildlife corridor behind my house. The fall colors were amazing and everything was peaceful. A car pulled up and my old friend Tommy stepped out. He was still in uniform, just back from his own deployment. Marcus, this place looks incredible. Thanks, man. Welcome to the federal wildlife corridor. We spent the day riding horses through the protected land, fishing in Sunset Creek, and catching up on everything that had happened. As evening approached, we were sitting by a campfire when Tommy asked about the HOA situation. So this woman actually tried to fine you $30,000 for tall grass? Yep. While I was deployed. And she didn't know you were a federal land management supervisor? Nope. She also didn't know she was standing on federal land when she made her threats. Tommy shook his head. Some people have to learn the hard way. I looked across the field toward Brenda's house. Her lights were on, and I could see her sitting alone at her kitchen table. Yeah, I said. They do. 6 months after the HOA incident, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Brenda. Dear Marcus, it began. I know you have no reason to read this, but I wanted to apologize properly for my behavior. I was wrong to threaten you, especially while you were serving overseas. I was wrong to create fake authority and demand money from neighbors. Most importantly, I was wrong to disrespect your service and sacrifice. The letter went on for 2 pages. She explained that she had grown up in the city and never understood rural life. She had been trying to recreate the suburban environment she was comfortable with, without considering what the neighbors actually wanted. I've learned that being part of a community means respecting what makes that community special. Your ranch and the wildlife corridor are beautiful. I should have appreciated them instead of trying to change them. The letter ended with a simple request. If you're ever willing, I'd like to learn about the wildlife corridor and federal land management. I think I could use some education about the land I live on. I thought about it for a week. Then I wrote back. Dear Brenda, thank you for your letter. Apology accepted. If you're genuinely interested in learning about wildlife management, you're welcome to join the monthly volunteer group that helps maintain the corridor. We meet the first Saturday of each month. To my surprise, she showed up. She listened carefully, asked good questions, and worked hard pulling invasive weeds. Over time, she became one of our most dedicated volunteers. She never became a close friend, but she earned my respect through her actions. It takes courage to admit you're wrong and work to make things right. Sometimes the best revenge is giving someone the chance to become better. My ranch is still beautiful. The federal wildlife corridor is thriving. The fake HOA is long gone. And I learned an important lesson about the power of knowing your rights and standing up for what's correct. Brenda learned that bullying veterans has consequences. The neighborhood learned that federal law trumps HOA rules. And everyone learned that respect is earned through actions, not demanded through threats. In the end, justice was served, lessons were learned, and life went on. But I still keep those federal land documents in my desk drawer, just in case any other Karens get ideas about my ranch.